Hey, I'm Evan.
And I'm Faith.
So today we're going to be talking about how to take better pictures of these things. So we originally got into photography because we want to take better pictures of our kids, and there's a lot of things that we've learned over the years. Kids can be really tricky because you can't exactly just tell them to pay attention, and a lot of times if you really try to force them to pay attention, it gets worse.
So today we're going to be sharing with you tips and tricks that we have learned along the way that have helped us take better photos of our kids and our clients.
So throughout this video, you're going to be seeing footage like this pop up. What you're actually seeing is everything that I saw while I was looking through the lens of my camera. In this case, I was shooting with a Nikon Z6, and every time the screen goes black, what you're actually seeing is me taking a photo. If you're a little more advanced in your photography, take a look at the settings that I was using. You're going to see the shutter speed, aperture, ISO, all of that. And if you stick around to the end of this video, you're going to see a full behind the scenes of me and my wife shooting pictures of our kids, and you're going to see some of these techniques put to work. Now, I'm not going to lie, so looking at this footage that I've picked for the video, you're going to think that this shoot went extremely well. But in any case, when you've got kids involved, it's just every man for themselves.
First and foremost, let's go ahead and pick out their outfits. Don't wait till the last minute to do this because you're gonna run into those things where clothes don't fit, they don't match, there's not something for the youngest one. So go ahead and pick that out a couple days prior. When you're picking out the kids' outfits, keep in mind if you have multiple kids, you don't wanna get too crazy with patterns. So try to mix in a couple solids with a couple patterns, floral, that sort of thing. Also make sure that your outfits are appropriate for the season so your kids are not burning up or freezing. All right, now that you got their outfits picked out, let's go ahead and pack a bag for the day of. Now this bag may vary depending on the season, but it's always a good idea to have some sunscreen and some bug spray in that bag, just in case. Also make sure that you pack plenty of snacks for the kiddos and your husband. Also be sure to grab enough water for everyone that's gonna be there. Now prior to going to the shoot, make sure your kids have eaten and had a nap if they're still napping. Be sure 24 hours prior to your shoot that you don't give the kids anything that's gonna stain their faces. It's always a good idea to make sure that we trim those nails, cut their hair prior to having that photo shoot.
So when you're picking a location, be sure to pick a place that's not going to have a ton of foot traffic and isn't going to be super busy when you go. So we always stick to public places unless we know somebody that's got some land or something of that nature. I know it may be tempting when you're driving down the road and you see a sunflower field. It's really tempting to shoot there, but unless you have permission from the owner, I highly advise that you don't shoot on their property. It's just not a good idea. So when we're picking a location, we look for a place that has a lot of versatility, but the biggest thing is don't pick a place that's going to have something in the background that's just going to be super distracting. The point of the photos is to take photos of your kids. One of the biggest pieces to picking a location is be sure to take into account what sort of vibe you're going for, whether it's rustic, traditional, or something more upscale. Another big piece of taking photos is picking the best time to go. You're gonna have to work around your kids for this, but the earlier the better, or the later the better as well. And what I mean by that, typically right as the sun is rising, great time to take photos, and also when the sun's about to set or just after it has set. The reason for that being is the higher the sun is in the sky, the more harsh your photos are gonna look. Another big piece of that is the temperature. So if you're shooting photos during the summer, the morning time is gonna be a lot cooler as well as the evening. You gotta kind of compromise in the winter. So obviously mornings and evenings are gonna be very cold. So you just kind of have to make that call if you're willing to trek it out there in that temperature, or if you prefer to be more comfortable while you're taking photos, you may want to go, I wouldn't say quite midday, but somewhere around 10 or 3. Just to name a few public locations that we've taken photos at in the past. We have a university close to us, go Cox. We've also taken photos at public parks, the State House, downtown. Sometimes we'll take photos in our own backyard.
Pose photos are always great, and if you're wanting those, make sure you get those in the beginning of your shoot. The kids kind of tend to lose their attention span over a short amount of time. That's where you can be creative and really get the kids interacting in the shoot. So this is a great way you can start playing games with them, you can tell them to make silly faces. So while trying to grab these pose photos, it's always acceptable to bribe your kids. To get that nice, candid smile, it's always a good idea to tell the kids to kind of rest their smile, take a second, shake it out, and then have them smile real quick and snap that photo right when they smile. So when your kids start to lose interest, this is a good time to kind of switch things up and go ahead and have them do an activity. An activity could be like walking and holding hands, dancing, spinning around. This is a great way to go ahead and get those kids back and engaged into the shoot. So if you're wanting individually posed photos, this is a great time to have any other kids that you have hop out of that photo and come behind you to help entertain the kid that you're taking photos of. They can make silly faces, sing them a song, whatever really grabs their attention. I know you really want those candid photos where they're smiling all the time, but sometimes your kids are just not going to give you that. That's okay. Embrace that. Whatever they're willing to give you, work with it. If they see that you're getting upset, they're going to use that against you. So just roll with what they have. If they're crying, snap it anyways. It's a great way to show their age and how they were feeling that day.
Here's some things that can make it more fun for your kids. Promise to do something fun after. Bring toys for them to play with. Bring a person to be crazy in the background. So some games you can play with your kids is Simon Says and I Spy. Promising to get ice cream also helps too. You can also take pictures while kids are doing an activity.
So if you've ever wondered if you can take great photos with your iPhone, or if it really matters what camera you have in general, that's an aspect of it, but one of the bigger pieces of photography is actually lighting. That is why we always recommend shooting outside at flattering times, which are going to be early in the morning or late in the evening. On top of that, the sun at these times emits a very warm, orangish glow, as opposed to, if you've ever noticed when you go out at midday, things just don't look as good. Everything's harsh, the shadows are harsh. When you have the sun immediately above somebody's head, it creates actually shadows where their eyes are, and that's the biggest piece of a photo, is seeing someone's eyes. If you're going to shoot photos inside, there's a couple things that you can do. I always recommend moving close to a window, having that person face the window. So one of your best friends when you're taking photos, whether you're shooting photos with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera or your iPhone, Android, whatever, the burst mode while taking photos of kids is going to be your best friend. A lot of times when we're doing shoots, I'm shooting continuous amounts of photos just to make sure I catch that perfect moment. Usually you only get a few split seconds of all the kids cooperating at one time, and that's why it's really important to constantly take photos. The great thing about cameras these days, as well as your phone, you can easily delete the ones that weren't good. So when you're taking photos of your kids, you actually want to have the light behind them as opposed to in front of them. If your kid is facing the light, they're going to have a hard time keeping their eyes open. This is especially important if you're not shooting early in the morning or late in the evening. So there's one exception to this. When the sun has set or it's gone behind trees or something of that nature, I like to actually have my kids face the sun. At that point, it's not a problem in terms of the kids being blinded by the sun, but it more so creates a catch light in their eyes. If you're shooting these photos with your iPhone, what I also recommend doing, if you look at your phone and you're taking the photo and the photo just appears to be really dark on the subject, what you can actually do is tap on your kid's face on the phone. Your phone is going to expose for your kid's face as opposed to the background, and sometimes your phone knows that and sometimes it doesn't. One thing that would drastically change your photography, if you do want to get a little more technical with this, is picking up a diffuser on Amazon. These are typically $15 to $30, and especially if you have two parents there or somebody there helping you take photos of the kids, these diffusers are great. They serve a couple different purposes. They are reflectors as well as diffusers. The diffuser side comes in handy if you've got somebody facing the sun. You can hold it above their face and it creates a very appealing soft light. One thing that I always like to try to do is to add a catch light to somebody's eyes. When you're facing some sort of light source, it just naturally happens. Wherever possible, I like that to be present in our photos. So in this first behind the scenes, we're shooting at about 11:30 in the morning. And as I mentioned before, this isn't a great time to be shooting photos, but what we can do is use some of the techniques that we previously learned to make these photos look a lot better. So I honestly took this first shot just to show you how bad it looks when you have your kid face directly towards the sun during midday. You know, as you can tell, our daughter had a hard time keeping her eyes open. There's a lot of contrast between the brightest parts of the image as well as the shadows. And overall, you can't even see her eyes. Now let's throw a diffuser in the mix. And instantly this shot looks at 10 times better, and all for under $30 of an investment. As you can tell, she's a lot more comfortable, the shadows aren't as harsh, and everything's more evenly lit. So in this next shot, I had my daughter face me with the sun behind her. And as you can tell, this is just a great shot, especially if you don't have an assistant to hold the diffuser above her head. And the biggest thing here again is that she's comfortable. If she's uncomfortable, she's not gonna be able to smile, and you're really not gonna get a good shot. And this next shot is basically the same thing. We just made one modification. With this diffuser, it comes with a matte white side to it. We use that side to reflect a little bit of light into her face. And what that does, it balances out the background to her a little bit better. And just as a side note, looking at this shot, we could have done a couple of things to make it a little bit easier on ourselves. One of the things I see is she's got a lot of stray hairs. We could have taken some hairspray to that. And also, she's got a little tattoo on her arm. We probably could have washed that off. But for these photos, we were just shooting these for demonstration purposes. But just keep that in mind if you are to go out and you have the intention of printing these out. Now, all of this can be cleaned up in Photoshop. It's a pain, but it can be done. Now for this next shot, we took this one at about 7 p.m. just as the sun was going down below the tree line. And this is a great shot right off the bat. And really no modifications are necessary in terms of incorporating a diffuser or anything of that nature. Pretty much everything that I would want in a photo is in this shot. She's got a catch light in her eyes. She's got, kind of a neat background, but it's not too distracting. And everything's just soft and appealing. And that's it, guys. If you didn't like this video, be sure to double tap the thumbs down button.
And if you did like it, be sure to like and subscribe.